my salvation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for that beautiful rendition of Swing Low. You know, God has blessed the church with, especially Glenwood, I think, with many talents and abilities. And it's good, heartwarming to see each one participating in such ways to use their talents and abilities. Sometimes the world can teach us a few lessons about life. Not always, but sometimes. Dick Walton was once the CEO of Walmart, said, "It's terribly important for everyone to get involved." Wouldn't you say that of the church today? It's important for everyone to be involved. In some way, to be involved. He went on to say, our best ideas come from clerks and stock boys. Walton's stories have been rather legendary through the years. According to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Walton couldn't sleep one night, so he got up and bought 4 dozen donuts at an all-night bakery at 2:30 in the morning. Could you do that? 2:30 in the morning? I'd be sound asleep. So he took them to a distribution center and chatted for a while with the workers from the shipping docks. And as a result, he discovered something rather interesting. He discovered that 2 more shower stalls were needed at that location. Who would have ever guessed that that was what was needed? But he did it at 2:30 in the morning. Again, the astonishing point is not in the story itself. Rather, any small business person could relate a host of similar tales. But the surprising news of this is that a top executive exhibited such a deep, bone-deep form of concern for his people in a $2 billion business enterprise. And that makes you wonder, how many wealthy individuals, corporate executive officers of a company, would take that kind of interest in his people in a common sense way. During his lifetime, Mr. Walton never abandoned his search for excellence. However, there was another person who made it his top priority to search for excellence in life as well. And I want to share that with you here today. Philippians 3:12 through 16 tells us, Paul says, "Not that I have already attained." What would he be attaining? Perfection. "Not that I have already attained or am already perfected, but I press on that I may lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus also laid hold of me." Where is Paul's direction in life? Gaining money? Getting wealthy? No, it's on Jesus Christ. Becoming more and more like him. The Apostle Paul's quest for excellence was not for the purpose of economic reasons. He was not the CEO of a big company like Walmart. His quest was rooted in a motivation that was far more excellent than the excellence Mr. Walton sought. Paul's concept of excellence was founded in the perfect and excellent life of Jesus Christ. In fact, Paul said it in this fashion, and we want to look at 1 Corinthians 2, verse 2. 1 Corinthians 2 and verse 2. "For I have determined not to know anything among you except" who? Jesus Christ and Him crucified. In other words, what Paul is saying here is, I don't want to know anything else except for the life and work of Jesus in my life, that I can share it with others. Paul sought to know Jesus Christ and Him crucified. And I think that is also important for us to realize something else about Paul. He does not recognize his ever achieving that excellency, that perfection in his life here on this earth. Have you ever read him saying that I've become perfect? I haven't either. I've yet to find that statement. That is his statement in Philippians 3. He says, I have not attained to perfection. So what then would he be saying to us in 2 Timothy 4, verse 7? Let's take a look at that. I have fought the good fight. Now, we need to understand, Paul is nearing the end of his life now. His earthly life is almost finished. He's in prison or house arrest. He's done his work. And yet he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Is he saying there that he has attained to perfection? No. Is he claiming that he is perfect, excellent? I have kept the faith. We need to understand some things about Paul's life and what he says here to have the right balance in our lives. We need to keep in mind here that Paul is very near the end of his physical life here on this earth. Soon he would give his life as a victim of Satan's wrath. But what does it mean when he says, I have kept the faith? I have kept the faith. What is your faith today? Where is it rooted? Paul makes a similar statement again in 1 Timothy 6:12. Let's take a look at that. Fight the good, now he's telling us to do something. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, to which you were also called, and have confessed the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. So, as Christian believers today, we're encouraged by Paul's words here to fight the good fight of what? Faith. Where is that faith to be found? In Jesus. Fight the good fight of faith. When I was a young boy, we had neighbors who built a house about 150 feet east of our house. The excavator who dug the foundation hole for that house piled the dirt that he dug in a big pile right between our house and theirs as it was being built. Now, the land we lived on was rather clayish, so that meant that a lot of it was lumpy, hard. Now, the family that was to move into that house once it was finished had 3 boys that were about my age. Some were a little older, some were a little younger, but close enough. That pile of dirt became very tempting to us as boys. Do you know why? We had dirt clod fights. We'd find soft clods of dirt and throw them at each other to see who we could hit first. I don't remember how we got started, but we did, and we had good dirt clod fights. I say good because they weren't harmful. When our mothers found out about it, they told us scoldingly not to fight that way. It wasn't a good thing to do. But they also told us that someone was going to get hurt. Somebody would pick up a dirt clod with a rock in it. And it had happened, but nobody got hurt. We had dirt clod fights, so they weren't angry fights, just friendly dirt clod fights. We always tried to make sure that when we threw a dirt clod, there were no stones or rocks in our clods. But it never failed, though, that when we got hit, there was always some kind of a mark on our shirt or pants somewhere. Dirt, and it had to be cleaned off. Mom washed my clothes quite often. Somehow, even though it was all done in fun, we got dirty and we had good fights. Friendly and fun though they were, those dirt-clod fights were not the good fight of faith. They weren't. They weren't the kind of faith that Paul is talking about here. Now, sometimes as Christians, we think that going to church on Sabbath, helping our neighbors with some of their needs, reaching out to the poor and the needy, the ignorant, is the good fight of faith. Do we think that? Is that the good fight of faith? Well, it can be part of it, but it's not the fight in its totality. Sometimes it seems that doing good things and helping others is part of that fight. Our good works, kind deeds, and obedience are an expression of our faith and growth in Jesus Christ. But that's not the faith in itself. Early one morning, late in the 1970s, a pastor had an unusually intense dream during his sleep. In his dream, he was sitting beside the sea with his congregation one afternoon. The young people had their guitars. Someone was leading out in choruses. They were having a good time singing and fellowshipping together. Suddenly, the pastor, in his dream, became frightened with a feeling of impending doom that was about to fall upon them. He stopped the singing and said, "Please, let us leave the beach here and climb this huge rock in back of us and get on top of it." But he was not very insistent, and they were having such a good time, they kept on singing, which was fine. I mean, it's okay, isn't it, to sing good songs? Soon, a large wave came along, up from the sea. It hit the rock and splashed out on some of the group. They laughed, emptied the water out of their guitars, and kept on singing with a little more gusto than before. Then, another wave, even larger, swept in and went over the group. The pastor was shaken deeply, and he turned to the people and said, "Won't you come with me now? We must climb the rock." By now, everyone was sopping wet, and they began to laugh at each other. "Look, this isn't funny anymore," said the pastor. "We must get up on the rock. Come with me now." Most of the young people there refused to go, but a few did climb up on the rock with him. On top, they found a small cabin. After they went inside, they looked out and saw the sea pulling back all the way out to the horizon. An enormous, horrible tidal wave was appearing. As the pastor's dream continued, he saw his congregation on the beach begin to scream and run in every direction. But soon the wave swept over them, coming all the way to the front door of the cabin on the rock. As the wave retreated, bodies were scattered everywhere in the scene of devastation and desolation. At this, the pastor woke up, shaking violently. He had to ask his wife to hold him and calm him down. He'd never had such a vivid dream as this one was, and he tried to put it out of his mind. The next week, as he preached at his church, a member waited to see him until he had finished, shaking hands with the people. After everyone else had gone, he said, "Pastor, I don't want you to think that I'm crazy, and I don't know whether I should tell you this, but just last night I had a dream, and the Lord had a message for me to give to you. I do not understand the message. I don't know exactly what it means. But the Lord said to me, tell the pastor. Tell the pastor. Don't forget to tell the people to climb the rock. The rock." The pastor's dream of a few nights before had been confirmed, and he continues to tell the people even to this day, to climb the rock, the rock which is Jesus Christ. For only those who are hidden in him will have protection against the terror that is overwhelming the world. So, this situation with the Philistines, I'm looking at the wrong page here. Get it straight. The fight that Paul calls good is not a physical battle as we might think. It involves certain physical aspects of our lives, yes, but it's not a physical battle that we're called to enter into. There are some who feel that a physical battle is what we are to fight. However, the Bible teaches something far different. Throughout the writings of the Apostle Paul, throughout the entire Bible, this battle is not described as a physical battle with guns, swords, and armor. Rather, it is described as a battle of spiritual warfare. Now, let's take a look at that. Let's look at Ephesians 6:12. Notice what Paul is saying here. For we do not wrestle. What does it mean to wrestle? Fight, doesn't it? In some ways. Some wrestlings can be good. But Paul is saying something else here. Do not wrestle. Do not fight against flesh and blood. But against what? Principalities. What are principalities? Principalities are systems of principles that are false and opposed to God's way. Fight against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So all around us in the heavenly spaces that we have here, there are forces of evil that are at work trying to get us to fall. They're out there. We can't see them in all cases, but they are there and they are working for our destruction. Let's turn to 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 6. Let's see what it says. Notice what Paul says here, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting out arguments. What do we cast out? What kind of arguments? Have you ever had an argument before with somebody? Who was right and who was wrong? Yeah. Casting down arguments. In this case, arguments that are evil, suggestive of evil. Arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. Being ready to punish what? All disobedience. When? When your obedience is fulfilled. Paul doesn't say just go out there and start telling people they're wrong. I had a church once where one of the members was a woman and her husband was an alcoholic. And every Friday night he'd go to the local bar and get drunk and start preaching. And he preached good messages. He told people what the Sabbath was. He knew the doctrines. He knew the teachings of the Bible. But he was drunk too. And everybody knew it. You can be ready to punish all disobedience, but only when your obedience is fulfilled. You need to learn that lesson. We all do. There is a battle that Scripture mentions that illustrates this truth, and I want us to look at it for just a moment here. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Saul was the king of Israel. He was being confronted by the Philistines who had a great army and some very strong men. Among them was a man called Goliath. You've heard the story, you know what it's about. But there's some things here I want you to understand. He was large and strong, and this man Goliath would come out every day and challenge the Israelites. Look at verse 16. And the Philistine, referring to Goliath, drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. Can you imagine standing up in front of this giant and listening to him berate the children of Israel morning and evening? How would you feel if some Russian or Chinaman got up and started doing that to the United States? Wouldn't like it, would you? No, none of us would. And there are some situations where that is actually happening in this world today. I won't mention them. But daily, he would come out and challenge the children of Israel. I don't know what he said exactly, but it must not have been very good. And guess what? If we understand this correctly, the devil does the same thing to us. He challenges our faith every morning and evening, and sometimes in between. Let's look at verses 8 through 11 of that chapter, 1 Samuel 17, 8 through 11. Then he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel and said to them, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine and you the servants of Saul?" Notice what his focus is on. "Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me." Come on, give me a strong guy. Let him come down. "If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." Notice, doesn't that sound familiar from the devil? If I can defeat you, you'll serve me. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been defeated by the devil's temptation at one point in your life? I have. And sometimes it makes me feel like I'm not worthy to be a Christian. But thank God for my Christian faith in Jesus Christ, because Jesus has overcome the devil, and he offers me his salvation. But this was an embarrassing time for the Israelites. They were afraid of the Philistines because of this giant brute. They did not realize that their fear only made them weaker. And that's what Satan wants us to think. Our fear keeps us from obeying God and makes us weaker. Instead of standing fearlessly, they cowered before the Philistine army. And the Philistines knew this. The situation was desperate. Unknown to the Israelites, this situation was the perfect opportunity, though, for the Lord to intervene. You know, it was while the Israelites were slaves in Egypt that God intervened. Sometimes it's when we're feeling the weakest that God intervenes in our lives.
Amen.
The Lord sent Moses to deliver the Israelites from Egyptian bondage. But this situation with the Philistines was similar. Israel was impotent against them, unable to gain a real victory. One day during the standoff, a young boy named David, now notice, David was not a strong man. Was he? Think about that carefully. He was a young boy, not a man. He didn't have the stature or the strength that Goliath had. But one day, this young boy named David had been asked by his father, Jesse, to take some supplies to his brothers in the war zone. Arriving on the scene, David saw the situation and quickly assessed the problem. Speaking to some soldiers, David asked a question. Let's look at verse 26, 1 Samuel 17, 26. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, "What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of" who? The living God. Wait a minute. The Israelites made up this army called the army of the living God, that David called the army of the living God, but they were acting weakly. Not my name, please. They were acting weakly. So then David was taken to the king, where he told the king how he had faced a lion and a bear and killed them both. Then David said something that gave the king courage and hope. Let's look at verse 37. Moreover, David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Yeah. Saul then put his personal armor on David, but David could not wear it. It was too heavy. Removing all of Saul's armor from his body, David went out to meet Goliath with just a staff, his sling, and 5 small, smooth stones. But God had a plan. The Lord had a plan. As the two opponents drew near to each other, Goliath leveled an insult to David and the Israelites. Let's look at that again, verse 42 through 44. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained David, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good-looking. Come on, guys. I don't want this young man to face an early death. He needs a wife, children, a family. He disdained David, but let's see what else happened. So the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." This guy had a lot of confidence, didn't he? He tells David, "Look, I'm going to take care of you once and for all. I'm going to get the fly off my face." But David said, "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you." Where was David getting his strength from? The Lord. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. Have you heard that the battle is not ours but the Lord's? Yeah. "And this day I will give you to the carcasses of the camp, of the Philistines, to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." You see, this battle is not about me. It's not about you gaining the victory. It's about Jesus winning the war. It's about Jesus winning the battle. And our faith in him will gain us the victory with him, not apart from him. Now, this threat should have stopped David in his tracks right there, but it didn't. Instead, David replied, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Now, again, I want to make an application here that should affect all of us. Who does the devil defy? The God of Israel, the God of his people, the God of heaven and earth. Satan comes with his army, which could be you and I if we're not careful. We may join it if we're not careful. But if we're careful, if we look to the Lord and trust in him, we become part of the Lord's army, not Satan's army. And when the devil comes to defeat us, guess who he has to fight? Not you, not me, the Lord. So notice what David says. Let's go back to it in verses 46 and 47. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. David isn't saying, I'm going to defeat you. The Lord's going to defeat you and give you into my hand. And I will strike you and take your head. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air. In other words, David isn't just worried about Goliath. He's including the whole camp of the Philistines to be delivered into the hands of the Israelites by the God of heaven and earth. David did not win the confrontation because he had a sling and only 5 stones. He won the confrontation and the battle that day because the battle was not his to win. Instead, it was the Lord's battle, and he only entered it in the name of the Lord, God of Israel. David fought the good fight of faith. He did. Today, we see evil all around us. It is closing in on us, intending to ruin and destroy us. Like Goliath and the Philistines, the devil does not want to leave a faithful follower of Jesus on the face of this earth. He hates that. However, we have been given a promise from Jesus himself that we may take encouragement from. Listen to it in Matthew 28, verse 20. Notice, this is part of Jesus' command to go and preach the gospel to the world. But notice what he says here, teaching them to observe all things I have commanded you. What has Jesus commanded us? Keep the Sabbath, obey God, don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't lie, cheat. Is that it? Unfortunately, it's not. That's not it. The devil, no, Jesus teaches us those things, yes. But the greatest thing we can do is to believe and trust in Jesus. And when we believe and trust in him, his commandments become important to us. And Jesus says, lo, I am with you always. How long? Even to the end of the age. All the way up to the end of this world. Jesus promises to be with us. And then in Hebrews, we are assured of the Lord's presence to give us victory. I want to look at Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Oh, there's that law again. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Who's saying that? Who's telling us he will never leave us nor forsake us? Jesus. That's the key. I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? Each of us needs to realize that the battle is not ours to fight and win. The battle belongs to the Lord. He has all the power that is needed to defeat the enemy and gain the victory. All we need to do is put our faith in him every moment of every day. Put your trust in Jesus, and he will give you his victory. You'll see it. You'll know it. And this is the good fight of faith that we're called to fight.